I never thought a single moment could change everything. My name is Sarah. I'm 28 years old, and this is how Islam found me when I wasn't even looking. It started on the worst day of my life. I was sitting in a hospital waiting room at 2 a.m. My younger brother had been in a terrible car accident. The doctors said the next few hours were critical. I felt completely helpless, more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. There was a woman sitting across from me. She wore a headscarf and kept her head down, praying quietly. I watched her for a while. There was something about the way she moved her lips, the peace on her face, despite being in a hospital at that hour. When she finished, she looked up and saw me staring. Instead of being upset, she smiled warmly. "Is someone you love in there?" she asked softly. I nodded, unable to speak without crying. She came and sat next to me. "I'm here for my father. He had a stroke. But I believe Allah has a plan, even when we can't see it." I remember feeling almost angry at that. How can you be so calm? How can you talk about plans when the people we love are suffering? She didn't get defensive. She just said, "Because I've learned that we're being tested. Every hardship is a test of our faith, our patience, our trust, and every test has a purpose, even if we don't understand it yet." We talked for 3 hours that night. She told me about Islam, about submission to God's will, about finding peace in the midst of chaos. She explained that Muslims believe this life is temporary, that suffering here is nothing compared to eternity, and that God never burdens a soul beyond what it can bear. My brother survived that night, but I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. I started reading about Islam on my own. I was surprised by what I found. The concept of one God, no intermediaries, just a direct relationship between you and your Creator. The idea that every single thing that happens is by God's will and wisdom. That we're all equal before Him. But what really got to me was the story of Prophet Muhammad's life. Here was a man who lost his mother as a child, lost his beloved wife, lost children, faced rejection and persecution, yet he never lost faith. He taught that even in the darkest moments, you turn to God, you pray, you trust. I realized I'd been living my whole life thinking I was in control, that if I worked hard enough, planned well enough, I could prevent bad things from happening. The accident showed me I wasn't in control of anything, and that terrified me until I understood what Islam was really offering: freedom from that burden. 2 months later, I went to a mosque for the first time. I was so nervous, but the women there welcomed me like I was already family. They didn't judge me for my questions, even the difficult ones. They didn't pressure me. They just shared their own stories, their own struggles, their own journeys to faith. One woman told me, "Islam isn't about being perfect. It's about striving, falling, getting back up, and always turning back to Allah. He knows you better than you know yourself. He created you. How could He not understand your struggles?" That resonated so deeply. I'd always felt like I had to have everything figured out, like I had to be worthy before I could approach God. But Islam taught me that God is the most merciful, that His mercy exceeds His wrath, that He loves when His servants turn to Him, especially when they're broken and lost. The moment I decided to embrace Islam, I was alone in my room. It was late at night. I'd been reading Quran translations, and I came across a verse that said, "Indeed, with hardship comes ease." 5 simple words that felt like they were written specifically for me in that moment. I got down on my knees, and I just talked to God. Not a formal prayer, just honest words from my heart. I told Him I was tired of trying to control everything. I told Him I wanted to surrender, to trust, to believe that He had a plan, even when I couldn't see it. I said the Shahada that night, testifying that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. I wish I could say everything became easy after that. It didn't. Learning to pray 5 times a day was hard. Wearing hijab was a huge adjustment. Explaining to my family was one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had. Some friends drifted away. There were days I felt isolated and questioned if I'd made the right choice. But here's what changed. I had peace. Real, deep peace that I'd never experienced before. When things went wrong, I had a framework to understand them. When I felt lost, I had prayer to ground me. When I felt alone, I knew Allah was always there, listening, caring, closer to me than my own jugular vein. The woman from the hospital became one of my closest friends. Her father recovered, by the way. She taught me how to pray, how to read Quran, how to navigate this new life. She reminded me that every Muslim was once where I am, learning, growing, sometimes struggling. What surprises people most is when I tell them Islam didn't take away my critical thinking or my independence. It actually gave me more clarity. I make decisions now based on principles and values, not just emotions or social pressure. I feel more myself than I ever did before. My brother sometimes asks me if I would have embraced Islam if he hadn't had that accident. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I believe that was my moment, my wake-up call. Allah used that hardship to guide me to something I didn't even know I was searching for. People often ask what I miss most about my old life. The truth is, I don't miss it. I miss some people who chose not to stay in my life, but I don't miss who I was. That person was always searching, always anxious, always trying to fill a void with everything except what actually mattered. Now, when I face difficulties, and trust me, I still do, I have tools to cope. I pray. I remember that this world is temporary. I trust that Allah's plan is better than anything I could have planned for myself. And I find comfort in knowing that millions of Muslims around the world are turning to the same God, seeking the same peace, striving on the same journey. If you're listening to this and you're curious about Islam, my advice is simple. Ask questions. Read for yourself. Don't let stereotypes or media narratives define what you think you know. Talk to actual Muslims. Read the Quran. Understand that Islam is a relationship with God, not just a set of rules. And if you're going through something difficult right now, know that it might be leading you somewhere you never expected. That night in the hospital waiting room, I thought my world was ending. I didn't know it was actually just beginning.